that's cool. And he goes, are you upset? And I was like, man, we can play chess, do basket weaving, freaking experimental, whatever, expressional dance. As long as we're outside and you still want to hang out with me, like I will do it. Like, and that's what I want. Like, I want people to find their thing that gets them outdoors. If it's shooting a stick bow, that is awesome. I think it's really cool. You get extra cool points for that. But if it's doing something else that's not destructive, I think that's awesome and it should be celebrated too.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Fair Chase podcast. If you listen to last week's episode, at this point there's a slight edit because I recorded it earlier today where I had to cut out where I said, I am your guest, James Zanstra, and I'm not actually the guest, I'm the host. I'm your host, James Zanstra, but when you record a podcast while you're sick, you say things that aren't exactly right. But I edited it out there, and so now I can officially say I am your host, James Zanstra, and I've got Matthew Morris here. Matt, how are you?
I'm doing good, James. Thanks for having me, man.
Good. Yeah, no, it's good. I'm excited to talk to you. Before we jump in, why don't you give a little background to who you are, what you do?
Matthew Morris. In my real job, I work in the aerospace domain, and husband, father, two boys, 8 and 10. No, sorry, 10 and 12. They would yell at me, which are on snow days today. We got like a foot of snow this weekend in eastern North Carolina, and that's a rarity. So the whole county doesn't really know what it's supposed to do. And I do this little thing on the side where I host the Bowyer Podcast and talk about things, mostly centered around traditional archery and artisans and makers and all things of the outdoors.
That's awesome. And actually, prior to this podcast, I was doing a little research on you, and your background's interesting. Actually, you got your master's in diplomacy. Is that right?
Yeah, close. I was working for NATO Special Operations because I did the military thing, the government thing, and I was living in Belgium. And while I was living in Brussels, I got into the master's program at the diplomatic school out there in Brussels, and I got a master's in international politics at the diplomatic school.
Okay.
And my thesis was in space policy.
That it's funny because
super nerd stuff.
No, well, it's just a small world. So I went to law school at Seton Hall, and the reason I picked that school was its connection to the UN. Because going in, I had planned on doing international law and specifically law of the sea, which if anybody studies law, which I'm not sure anybody would know this, but the law of the sea is very similar to space law, and a lot of similar ideas. And so what I did was for a year, I was actually going to grad school at the same time. I was doing law school and I was doing my master's program like concurrently. And it was the School of Diplomacy. So it was Seton Hall School. I had planned on getting that degree, and then I felt the Lord pulling me to join the military. So I dropped it and I dove into trying to become a judge advocate general for the Marines. And so I don't know if I've ever talked about that on this podcast, but it just seemed relevant because it was like very similar to your background.
Yeah,
So
man, parallel lives. So like I even wrote a paper on this on like the synergy or the confluence of space law and the high law of the high seas, right?
yeah,
And all the way back to like Thayer Mahan and Roosevelt, the Great White Fleet, and how we're orchestrating the same thing, the U.S. Space Command, and all that stuff too. And also, I did the Marine Corps thing too. So
it's fun. Well, and I can't say I was ever part of the Marines. So what happened was I did all the stuff, physical requirements. You got to do the running and whatever, and then got my grades, and it was an application process, and it took forever. And I finally get it all set up, and the guy's like, "Hey, good news, you passed everything to join. The bad news is we have no program for you to join because the military cuts. This was back in 2010 or 11, maybe." And they're like, so there's no like entering class, so there's nothing for you to join. You're gonna have to wait at least a year or whatever. And so I was like, okay. I don't know if that's, I don't know if it's really where I'm called to be, weirdly enough. I think just the process of trying to do it. So waited around, ended up getting a job offer from the UN to work in the law of the sea. And I, for some reason, was like, actually, now that I'm here, I don't think that's right for me either. And so joined a startup in a completely different area of the world, I guess, or like, work, and kind of took a totally different career path. But for a while, I wrote a lot. I did a lot of studying of international law and diplomacy. So I saw that in your, like, long story short, it's not hunting at all, but I saw it on
Yeah.
LinkedIn. I'm like, huh, interesting. What a small world.
It is, man. Yeah, it's super cool. I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff on there that will feed your brain, right? That we are often blind to because in the States we kind of feel like we're our own bubble. We feel like the whole world thinks about us all the time and all these
Right.
things. In reality, it's not generally the case.
No, no. Yeah, it's just funny how that works out, and somehow that led us here together to talk trad archery. OnX is the title sponsor of our podcast here at the Fair Chase, and it's a must-have app for all of us who love to explore the outdoors. Whether you're hunting or hiking or fly fishing, OnX gives you detailed, accurate maps right at your fingertips. With property boundaries, topographical features, and trail data, you'll always know where you are and where you're headed. You'll also likely be able to figure out where that big buck is headed to. Plus, their offline maps mean you're covered even in the most remote locations. OnX is the ultimate tool for outdoor navigation, making every adventure safer and more enjoyable. Download OnX today and explore with confidence. The first thing I got to ask you about, so you're, Bowyer Collective, you were kind of connected with like Eric Clark and like the Okayest
Yeah.
Hunter group. But the first thing I always wonder when I'm talking to a trad guy is like, how trad like actually are you? Because there's like, it's like a continuum between, you know, where I'm at. I've got a recurve. I'll hunt with it occasionally, take it out. But I got a compound bow, and most of the time I'm using that. I'm going, and there's the other side where there's a guy who's like, man, I only am shooting a self bow that I made my arrows myself. I flint did the whole arrowhead thing. Like, where
Yeah.
on this psychopath continuum are you?
Yeah, dude, I'm a blasphemer when it comes to a lot of that because like I make self bows, but I'll happily shoot carbon arrows and modern broadheads. And, like I would say like I'm definitely a traditional bow hunter and, traditional bowyer, but not primitive because like I'm not making my string out of sinew. I'm not, I've yet to make, a batch of arrows out of river cane or something like that, even though we've got a
Well, you got
heaping
a
ton
job.
out here. Yeah, I got a
You know,
job, right? Like I
what do you
also like you
expect?
look back, look back in time, whether it's like early civilization in Europe or indigenous cultures here in the States, like bowyers and fletchers were also two different trades and crafts within either a
Right.
village, a craft, or a tribe, right? So, man, I don't know who's got that much time, man. I mean, like my buddy, I got some great pals that are bowyers, like my mentor who was on Fair Chase, Corey Hawk, and he makes his own
Yeah.
arrows, but he is a bow, that's his life, right? Like has his
Right.
it's his means and everything else, and he's very traditional all the way there, and I love that, and I envy that. I was out hunting with Bear Newcomb back in December, and man, he even had some broadheads that he had flint knapped himself.
I saw
And
that.
I like to make bows, but I also think sometimes I would question my sanity if I decided to pick up another hobby that that, that was pretty that took a lot of finesse and mental bandwidth out of my limited my limited capacity that I have now. So yeah, man, I've got on my wall, I got a Fred Bear takedown, I've got a modern longbow from Rhino Longbows, and I've got three or four self bows that I've made or my buddies have made. Um, I've got a bow coming in the next couple months from Jim Neves of Centaur Archery. It's going to be carbon fiber and have a splash of color and all that stuff too. So I don't know, man. I guess the world compels us to pick a team all the doggone time, and I
Yeah.
don't know why we have to sometimes in the hunting world. I hunted with a compound bow from the age of I think 13 or 14 until like 4 years ago. And then this last year, I actually shipped my compound bow to a buddy of mine that's trying to get into hunting and lives out in Colorado. So I don't even have a compound in my house right now. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes I want to see an arrow move fast, but it's just not. It's not as in my mind. It's not as fun as single stick and string.
Shooting practicing with a recurve or a longbow, in my opinion, it's more fun. Like I shoot my, don't get me wrong, I shoot my Hoyt all the time. Like, I love to shoot long range and everything else,
Hmm.
but like really what's real fun is throwing like I can't remember the name of the stump, the heads, the rubber heads,
Yeah, those little blunt, those
blunt
blunt
tips.
tip heads. Yeah, stump shooting and
Eh,
stuff.
Stump shooting is, or I would take like a ball, one of those little ball targets, chuck it out and
Hmm.
just shoot it and then chuck it in like, my backyard and just shoot or, try to shoot squirrels for a long time. Like it's a
Hmm.
lot of fun.
It really is. I've talked about this on my pod quite a bit. I was like, look, I always loved bow hunting, but I never loved archery until I picked up a stick bow, and then I realized I like just going out and shooting my bow. To me, bow hunting in the past was like, oh, I picked up a compound, so I get like an extra 2 months of hunting season in, and I love that. I
Right.
love the patience that it instills and the advancement of woodsmanship and all that stuff. But I was never like, man, I can't wait to just go shoot 50 arrows today with my compound. It's a beautiful piece of engineering. I admire it, but it wasn't for me. It wasn't therapeutic like picking out any bow that's on my wall right now and just going out in my yard and shooting. Like we have a little game in the house where like we got a lot of pine trees, and like my kids will throw pine cones off the back deck, and basically if I can shoot the pine cone from the deck, they go get my arrow for me. But if I miss it, I
Yeah.
go get my own arrow. It's kind of like, so it's just one of those little things. And then I've made them all self bows and everything now too. So it definitely gave me a stronger affection for not just bow hunting, but for archery itself as a sport and pastime.
Yeah, for sure. So did you grow up shooting trad or like, how'd you get
Oh,
into hunting at all?
yeah. I was raised mostly by my grandparents. I mean, especially my outdoor mentorship and everything else. My grandfather was my outdoor mentor from a small age. I have like pictures of being, I don't know, whatever age, 4 or 5, something like that, and having an orange sippy cup and like walking in the woods with my granddad, things like that, hunting, fishing, small game. I grew up in Missouri. Um, I started I started deer hunting when I was 11, and it was basically like when I was old enough to take my hunter safety course, rifle hunting, and then I picked up a compound bow again. I think I was 14 when I picked up a compound. Nobody archery hunted or bow hunted in my family. I was kind of the first one to take that up. But once
Hmm.
I realized that I could have an additional 2 or 3 months of hunting in the fall, because in Missouri it was
Yeah.
you only get basically 10 days during the rut and rifle season, right? So I'm able to hunt from like, I think at the time it was like 1 October till the end of the year, and now it might even
Yep.
be as early as 15 September. So yeah, and then took a number of critters with my compound, and other than absences I had when I was living overseas and deployed and whatnot, because Uncle Sam really liked to make me go do things during prime hunting seasons. But um, now we've been stable back in the States and everything else for the last, I don't know, 5 years or so. I've been able to pick up a lot more.
Your trophy photos are buried in your phone, and the details from your best hunts are already getting fuzzy. Trophium fixes that. It's the app built specifically for hunters and anglers to document every detail: location, weather, gear, and the full story, preserving your memories and allowing you to share them with your crew in private groups. Download Trophium today wherever you get your apps or at trophium.co.
That's cool. Yeah. I mean, that's how I got into archery too. It's like a realization that I could spend a lot more time in the woods hunting as a kid, and I could just hunt earlier. Like in Michigan growing up, it's like 14 was when you can shoot with hunt with a rifle, and then 12 with a bow. It's like 2 extra years. That's pretty
Yeah.
sweet. And, so I mean, that's how I got into it. And you and I had talked on the phone, I think earlier this week even. But a couple of years back, I'm like, man, I like the idea of this trad bow thing. It looks so fun and it's very peaceful. And so I did the sell your bow, dive totally to trad, and it was a great time. Like I learned a lot. It actually totally affected how I draw my compound bow now. I draw it kind of like I don't know why, but the way that I got used to drawing with my recurve, just like when I switched back, I just draw funny. Like my muscles must have changed in those 3 years, and
Yeah.
drawn like a goofball, but whatever, you know.
I haven't even thought about that because with a compound, I would almost like tuck that elbow in to come back. But now I
Yeah,
really put a lot more emphasis on bringing that scapula to my spine. So I imagine like if
right.
I was pulling back a compound, it'd be a little funny looking at least. You know, I think it still worked
Um,
just fine, but it probably looked
oh yeah.
less cool.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like the beautiful draw for me.
Yeah.
Not that I really ever had one, but now it's. I've gotten some comments online from some folks that apparently know so much more than me about how to draw a bow. So, a lot of
Everybody
those
with a
guys out
keyboard.
there.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said anybody with a keyboard these days.
Holy cow! It's a certain generation of people, I'll say, are more apt to do that. And that's an older generation than I am. Just
Mm.
saying, boomers. Anyways, yeah. So you've been kind of making your own bow. So not only did you switch from compound to trad, but like now you're making your own bows. How'd you get
Yeah,
into that?
yeah. Honestly, through Corey Hawk, there's a point where like the world was putting so much focus on moving faster and being more optimized, and digitized, right? And I was like, I need something that I can do with my hands and something that will help empower me to spend more time outdoors and hopefully doesn't cost like a fortune, right? And
Right.
it was one, I think I'd spent so much time working so hard and going to school. I mean, I finished both my degrees after we had kids. So,
Yeah.
that being said, it was just like the grind was always there and my wife was very supportive and she's like, yeah, you should do this course. I mentioned this course with organic archery with Corey Hawk. And I
Yep.
went and signed up for it and did his bow making 101 and went there and spent 3 days with Corey and a couple of guys and hit it off, made a beautiful hackberry longbow, which pulls like 45 pounds, and came home and immediately ordered like a draw knife and a rasp and like basic tools and cut some trees down and made staves and started diving into it. And then made my wife and kids self bows right off the bat that were I think everybody's gotten an upgrade since then, fortunately, because they're kind of Frankenstein looking because I was not under the tutelage of Corey at that point. And now I've probably made, I don't know, 30 plus bows or so. So, from, a standard pyramid style to English longbows to, I mean, the one that I'll probably be shooting the most this year is one I made it as an Osage native and Seneca inspired bow. It's a short bow. It's like 54 inches at 60 pounds, but it's only got a 24-inch draw. So it's a short draw. I mean, my draw is around 29, 30. So, but it's a fun, unique style and I really dig it. But then again, I think I've built, given away or sold my favorite bow a number of times already. So it's subject to change between now and hunting season.
Yeah, I get I get that totally. Well, I'm just like thinking back. I feel like we've done an overabundance of podcasts with people that are like trad guys. I don't know why. I feel like you guys are fun to talk to, and although I'll say some of you guys can be pretty, tight, like tightwads about, like everything. But like the guys that I've had on the podcast, like you mentioned Corey, we had like TJ Conrad's from Traditional Bowhunter Magazine, like Ben
Hmm.
Massey and all these guys that hunt trad, and Jim Belcher who builds bows,
Yeah.
and yeah, and like you. So it's just like funny. As I'm thinking about this podcast, I'm like, what is it that I just like to have these guys on? You need a platform. People need to know about it.
That's why I started the Bowyer podcast, to be honest, is like, I was kind of just like suckered into it with Eric Clark, right? Of OKS Hunter and Zach Hansen of the OKS Trapper. But it was like, if you could do this, like, what would you do? And I was like, man, I would like to tell the stories of the makers. I was like, that's
Right.
what I think. A lot of those guys aren't putting pen to paper, right? So that might be something that is compelling. And I think people so far have been drawn to that. Just the average guy that's picked up a craft and is trying to master that and hone that skill. And you know, it was like the wedding singer, right? In the scene when he's like, "Well, I'm the guy with the microphone, so sit down," or it's a paraphrase, but um,
Yeah.
it's your podcast. You're the guy with the microphone. You get to pick who you talk to, and for me, like I don't know, the trad community is usually pretty interesting for me to talk to. So
That's
um,
right. You get to do what
that's
you want.
luxury,
You get
right?
to.
It's like,
I'd
why
say
do I
that all
keep
the
having these
time.
people on? I'm like, oh, well, because it's a conversation that I want to have.
Yep. Sorry, listeners. I do what I want, and
Yeah, not the
you got
boss
to
of
deal
me.
with it. Yeah, you're not the
Because only
boss.
recently I started putting out an email out there, for people to get feedback. So
Right. I know. Same. Like
yeah,
I've always actually, I really deeply care about what people want. And I
Mhm.
really just
Yeah.
want to, but I like to feel big, and make it seem like I'm in total control of everything. Of
Mhm.
course. I mean, so have you? I mean, the typical knock against trad guys. It's like you guys don't kill anything. Like you just go out there, sit with your wood bow, and you take cool pictures, and you watch deer at 25 yards, and you wait for them to come closer, or you send one over their back. Like, is that a thing? Have you noticed that for you? Like, what's that like?
Quick shout out to another amazing sponsor of ours, Kafaru International. If you're like us and love hunting in some of the toughest places, you know how crucial having the right gear is. Kafaru makes some of the toughest, most reliable backpacks and tents out there, and it's all made right here in America. Whether you're hunting in the backcountry or headed to your favorite deer stand, Kafaru has you covered. Keep your eyes out this year, especially as they're launching a ton of amazing new products like the new Arc frame that just came out. So next time you gear up for an adventure, make sure to check out Kafaru International.
I mean, yeah, I'm a very average traditional bow hunter. So, I mean, so actually, this fall was the first whitetail bucks after 4 years of doing this, and it was a spike. So, I will assimilate to some of that stereotype because, I've got a handful of pigs. I've got two bears with my trad kit. I got an alligator last year.
Cool.
It was just pretty neat. A collection of yard grizzlies, and but at that point, man, a whitetail buck had been eluding me, and
Mhm.
I was dadgum stoked this fall to get a little spike on the ground with a longbow because it had been quite the journey to do that. And yeah, there was a lot of watching critters at 30 yards, and knowing, right, like, 30 to 60 yards is a pretty easy poke with a compound, and knowing that there'd probably be a little bit more meat in the freezer had I, had a different weapon at that time. But I kind of mentioned that I'm a little blasphemer in the trad community sometimes because, like, if it's like late season, come December, a lot of times I'll take out my wife. Well, I have no problem rifle hunting and stuff like that too. So
Sure.
I try to spend most of my season with a stick bow in my hand. But when it comes down to it, at the end of the year, we get about 90% of our protein in our house from wild game and fish. So I'm more than happy to get out the lever gun and put a couple
Oh,
of
it's a
deer on.
lever. I was just gonna ask, what are you shooting? I mean, sometimes you trad guys like the flintlock and stuff, and you
Man,
know,
I don't, and I was talking to Andrew Wills of Hawk and Horse, the musician, and he's all into like the Hawk and rifles and everything else. And just picking his brain on this stuff the other day. I was like, man, I really want to get a flintlock for
yeah,
no other reason other than like it looks cool.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I've got look. I like to shoot my bow really close, but I've got a lot of long distance rifles too because it's fun. I did the military thing. It's nice to make pokes at 7, 8, 900 yards. So yeah, but I live out in the swamps of North Carolina now, so it doesn't really like
Ah,
in open sights. I got my 35 rim lever gun that was a hand me down from my granddad, and that's probably my favorite rifle I'm using in the woods right now.
yeah. No, I like that. I mean, it's kind of similar in Michigan, and we don't get a ton of long shots. I think this year is my longest shot in a deer. It was like 450 yards, which is fairly long, but
Yeah,
you got out west, it's a totally different
absolutely.
game. Um, yeah, interesting. So you're squirrels, like you do a lot of the yard grizzly stuff. Like
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
so fun to do.
it's super fun. I tell you, also, I mean, take a stack of arrows too if you're going to go try to knock squirrels out of the trees in the woods.
Do you
But it
stick them
is
in the tree a lot, or do you just send them and they can't find them?
the latter. Yeah, I've sent a lot and not been able to find them. So yeah, and I mean, I can't remember who I was talking to about this, but somebody puts like the flu
Hmm. I've seen that.
fletchings on to slow them down and stuff like that. But again, I mean, I've got a job, and I make my sets of arrows for hunting, and they're just for hunting whichever I'm shooting at that time.
Right.
So Yeah, but I mean, putting on some small game heads and going after squirrels and stuff is a dadgum blast. And I tell you, knocking a squirrel out of a tree is you're really
Awesome.
pretty impressed with yourself, you know? Like you're like, oh yeah, if you
Yeah.
can come back home with two or three bushy tails with the longbow, that to me
You're
that's
the
a pretty
man.
big accomplishment. It's fun, and you know,
Yeah.
and you if you still have at least one or two arrows left in your quiver, like that's a successful day.
Well, it's just funny because like trad allows you to just have like do more like games with your bow and like things you would never like. Me and Jared, when we were both shooting recurve, we would get in go in a field, like a big field, and just see who could shoot the farthest.
Yeah,
You know, like, and he's just like this, like you would
yeah.
never do that with a compound bow. But with the trad bow, you loft it, and by the time you get to it, it's standing straight up and down. By the time it lands, you know, so
Very
it's
much.
like a little
You're gonna
flag,
yeah, you're gonna be able to see the arc the entire for its entirety too, right?
right?
Or mention like the games we'll play like horse or something in our backyard where we'll throw like one of those ball targets that you referenced. We'll
Yep.
throw that and play like a game of horse, and we'll have to do it from you know a kneeling position or whatever. Me and my wife and kids or friends will come over at a barbecue, and I'll give got enough bows to do that, and we'll do something like that. Stump shooting in the woods. It's I mean it's a good time, and you're probably not going to launch it the arrow 500 yards, right? Like with
Yeah.
the compound, you're not going to be able to pull that off. So it does it's just it's an opportunity to lower the barrier to entry and doing things outside, right? And especially for a lot of folks that are just trying to get into this, like purchasing a compound bow is a pretty lofty expense up front,
Yeah.
even a used one. And don't get me wrong, like a lot of trad bows, new ones are expensive. They're 1,200, 1,400, 1,800 bucks or more sometimes. Um, but you can find a lot at a garage sale or a swap meet for 25 to 50 bucks. And
Yeah.
uh, and it's going to be just fine. And you're going to be able to kill animals. You're going to shoot all the arrows that you want, and put a new string on there, and you've probably got a pretty fun tool and weapon that will last you many more years.
Yeah. I mean, you can get a fully set up bow for not terribly expensive. I mean,
Hmm.
I was just looking at. I want to get one of the Hoyt Satoris at some point. Like it's less handmade, but it's
Hmm.
they it is. I've found the non-handmade bows just generally are easier to shoot. Like something with a metal. It's less
Yeah, like
trad,
the,
and
the
I
metal rise
recognize
there
it.
on that. Yeah. I'm sure some trad police will poke a little bit, but look, man, if you're having fun with it, embrace it and you know, spread the word.
Yeah, again, I want to ask you about trad police in a second. We'll get to that. But
Okay.
the other question that comes to mind that would drive me nuts about shooting traditional is your hat. Like my bill always got in the way. So either you're shooting like a goofball like this, or it's always backward hat. So I'm looking at the one you've got right now. Is that a short bill or is
This
that
is a
not?
short brim, yeah. I mean, that's a shameless plug. Everybody can see my awesome hairdo here, but this is a short brim that I use, so I don't have to flip it around. But I mean, I wear plenty of regular old hats. But yeah, it's hard because then you got to like prop it up high, right? Or you gotta turn it or just go
Yeah, yeah.
backwards. I'm too much of a redneck to wear a backwards hat, so there is certainly that. I really like the first light stocking cap they have with the little short brim.
Yeah, the
Like,
beanie thing.
yeah,
Yep.
the beanie with the brim. I love that because it's a short brim. So, um, it's I don't have to flip that around. This one is this shamelessly this one's on my website. So I had these
That's a cool
short
one.
brim ones made. Um, they're probably not going to win any fashion contests, but it I don't have to flip my hat around when I'm shooting it in that case. But yeah, I mean I still have times because I'm always wearing a hat anyways where I forget that I don't have a short brim on and I wall up the bill of my hat and all that stuff. But
Yeah, you like shooting is like hit you.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, So, but trad police. So, and this is true. Like, this is true throughout like the hunting industry, right? There are
Hmm.
folks that come out of the woodwork. Anything you do that try to correct you. We do it all. We have it every time we throw a film out. Somebody's like, "Well, you mentioned this bison hunt you did, and you said that this, and it's actually this." And half the time they don't watch the full video, and
Yeah.
they don't really understand. Like they are just saying the first thing that comes to mind. That can be especially true with the traditional community. I mean, like I said, I tried to do like like just full out doing it, only trad for a couple years, and I loved it. But the part that got old was these, people like, kind of telling you what's wrong or right. And so you're kind of a public figure when it comes to traditional archery. Like, how
Yeah,
do
I
you
mean, I've
handle
got
that?
tons of
Like, do you get a
followers.
lot of that?
I'm a big shot. So
You are a big shot. Like, do you get a lot of crap, or is it not too bad? Or
I I don't that much. I think part of it is like I'm very open about like I like to shoot bows and arrows. I like to shoot all sorts of I like to shoot recurves. I like to shoot longbows. I like to shoot self bows. Um, a conversation that we just had ad nauseum, right? Like I don't have the time to like make my own sinew string. If somebody made one for me and I put on my bow, I'd shoot the heck out of it and be like, I think it was really cool, but I'm probably not going to be the one that dives into that and does that, right? Um,
right?
so that being said, like words do matter, I guess sometimes where people where we talk about our grown-up jobs in our other life, right? Like policy and diplomacy, legal, like traditional and primitive, right? Like, try to be kind of aware because if you say something's primitive, people will be like, oh, well, that's not what the Paleolithic blah 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 did. Um, but in reality, right? Like people have been shooting pointy sticks out of other sticks for at least 9,000 years. That's when the home guard bow was discovered about 9,000 years ago, and or the oldest intact bow. And I think that if prehistoric man didn't uh, try to evolve their tactics a little bit, they wouldn't have gotten as far as they did. So when everybody gets their panties in a bunch about, a simple word or vernacular or look, shooting 3 under compared to instinctive, right? Like people are like,
What
oh,
are you?
I'm an instinctive shooter, but it's only because I taught myself how to shoot in my backyard. I don't know any better, right?
Right.
Like people that I shoot, like Brandon Lilly's a pal of mine. Like he shoots.
Oh
He's
yeah.
he's grown so much in his shot. Like watching his
Yeah.
shot sequence for the last few years, and he shoots split finger. And if we're gonna shoot more than 20 yards, like I would never go up against Brandon, right? Like he's definitely a much more laser focused shot than that. I had the great fortune of shooting with Tom Klum at ETAR this year for a full day and a half.
Yeah.
Man, he didn't try to change me get away from shooting an instinctive, but he did help me with my mechanics, and I loved that. But there are people that will get out there and be like, "Oh, well, only instinctive is really traditional because then you're aiming." And I'm like, anytime you're using any reference, you're
At
aiming,
all.
if it's in a
Yeah.
peripheral, right? Like you're shooting a projectile. There should be some aiming involved, right? So I guess not to get too hoity-toity
I
about it,
close
but
my
like,
eyes when I shoot, so then it's truly,
yeah,
truly
right,
trad.
yeah.
Wherever the
You-
arrow goes.
You're manifesting the
That's
trajectory of
right.
it.
It's right.
So yeah, I mean, some people, I think early on when the podcast first started, because it was widely centered around like folks who are making self bows. There are folks that are like, oh, and you're shooting this recurve or this or that, like a bear recurve or something. Like it's a fun bow. Like have you shot one? Like you should. It's fun. Like that's kind of my response. Not like, oh,
Yeah.
I know I'm letting you guys self bow guys down. So it's not bad. I don't get on like forums and stuff like that, so I think I
They're
probably
terrible. Oh,
yeah, I mean like avoid some of it. Comments and feedback for the podcast and stuff are not, overly critical. I've had people like email in, was like, oh yeah, but like have you ever thought about dedicating the full year to your self bow? And I think it's more inquisitive than a critique.
right.
I'm like, yeah, man, I do. But then sometimes I literally like if I was a better archer, I'd probably just shoot the same bow all the time. But sometimes I just grab whatever one off my wall and the arrows that I built for that bow, and that's where I'm going in the woods with that day. And I like the freedom that I have with that. So
Hunters, listen up. Latitude Outdoors builds gear for the mobile hunter. Their saddle hunting systems are designed to cut weight, not performance, so you can cover more ground and set up fast, wherever the hunt takes you. From dense hardwoods to open ridges, their mobile-focused gear keeps you efficient and adaptable. Check out their full range at latitudeoutdoors.com.
I don't think I've gotten poked too much, but man, you can if there's more than two guys in the conversation, it can get a little uh, pretentious with the divides that what is made to be traditional or not, though, right?
Yeah. Well,
So
it's just a waste of time. And
it
you know
is.
what? We should just be celebrating the fact that someone's out there with a stick and string, whatever the stick and string look like. I
Yeah.
mean, as long as it's not a crossbow, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I
Yeah.
mean,
No, but
that's,
they're out in the woods, they're getting after it. They're, I don't know, like to each their own, man. It's cool.
yeah. I mean, we could have a conversation over beers about crossbows, not being a bow, of course, but
Probably should keep that for the rifle season. Nah.
yeah, yeah. That's my thing. It's me. It's a policy thing. It's not even a user thing. It's a policy thing, right? Is it a bow? No. So what are we doing? But generally, like my youngest, he went with me on actually this past year when I went on a pig and alligator hunt. He went with me, and it was part of my 40th birthday, and I got a pig. He got his first aim. We got a pig shooting a little suppressed 223. He's really
Sweet.
excited. He's emotional. And like that evening, we went out for dinner and we're hanging out. And he was like, "Dad, I had such a great time today. I had a great adventure." He goes, "But I don't think I want to shoot animals anymore." And he's like, and I was like, "Okay, buddy, that's cool." And he goes, "Are you upset?" And I was like, "Man, we can play chess, do basket weaving, freaking experimental, whatever, expressional dance. As long as we're outside and you still want to hang out with me, like I will do it." Like, and that's what I want. Like, I want people to find their thing that gets them outdoors. If it's shooting a stick bow, that is awesome. I think it's really cool. You get extra cool points for that. But if it's doing something else that's not destructive, I think that's awesome and it should be celebrated too.
Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, the more kids are outside, especially kids, like
Yeah.
the better. And off of things that are fake reality. I think we're full of a false reality in this world, and it's only becoming stronger.
It
And
really
more
is.
and
Yeah.
more people are jumping on it, and so it's like, you're replicating what's already out there. And I think there's some, time and space for that kind of thing, but not nearly as much as we give it. And we slowly kind of physically check out, and I think that's just a really slippery slope to some bad stuff.
It is, man. I don't think society is not paving the way to foster a nurturing household, something that's immersed in nature and the outdoors. You talk about being called and your faith and all that stuff at the very beginning of the call, but like the same thing, right? Society is often pushing us away from that. And I kind of say there's a lot, it's like society kind of sucks. So maybe we don't need to focus on what society wants, but we can still have an impact with our community that's directly around us and then our friends and family that we choose to be in our lives. And um, man, if we can maintain that stronghold, until the day that we don't wake up on the right side of the dirt, I think that's a pretty good metric for success.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like the way I've thought about it is like, one is made by the Lord and one is made by man. And
Mhm.
sometimes man-made stuff's good, but most of the time it's not nearly as good as the real thing. And everything we're making is just kind of a shadow or a reflection of what actually is. And when you do that, you add a whole bunch of stuff that ought not be there. And I think you see that with different psychological issues people have and struggle with. And I think a lot of that is cleaned up by just taking a walk outside every once in a while, getting to bed on time, eating well, that kind of thing. When you are an outdoorsman, it maybe comes a little bit more easily. Although I will say, like, the sleep part of getting obsessed with the outdoors does suffer on occasion. Like, basically from
Yeah.
September to January, I don't sleep a whole lot.
Yeah.
But you know, whatever.
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah, you're getting up silly early, and if you have a late night, it's because you're, field dressing a deer or packing something out, and yeah,
No,
everything
man,
else.
I just
Yeah.
did my last one, and it's like I have to cut this up. It's either I have to get this taken care of in my garage because it's too warm or it's like too cold, and it's like, man, if
Mhm.
it's gonna be frozen forever and it's gonna be a whole thing. So I've got two big metal bowls in my chest freezer in my garage that are full of two different deer that I still have to like grind up into sausage. But it's like, at least I got them in there and I can deal with it later. But yeah, you're right. Like, you have those early morning, and then on top of everything of trying to get after it and go on adventures and stuff. You have like your regular life, you have your family and your kids, and
Because
work
the
also is
last thing
kind
you
of
want at the end
important.
of the season is for your wife to feel like a hunting widow, right? Or your
Right.
kids to feel that way, because
Yep.
that's going to make next year a lot harder.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Well,
if they're
you
not,
don't want them to hate it. You want them to respect it. And
yeah,
if you're,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
So you next year, what's on the docket? What kind of hunts you going on in 2026?
Yeah, man, I try to plan. Like, I think I just started getting to whether it's at that like economic threshold or age or whatever, where I'm like, I can see myself doing adventure hunts type of hunts.
Hmm.
And, I think I started doing a Western hunt. My first Western hunt was in 18, I guess. And then I've tried to do something almost every year since then. So this year in May, I'm planning on going up to Alaska on bear hunt with my buddy Sam Curtis. Sam's a knife maker, polite but dangerous tools, and he we become pals over the last few years. And kind of like what you and I discussed, live parallel lives. Like, I was an intel guy in the military and government. He did the same thing, but for the army. And then we got out, and we kind of do very different things now. And family guy. So we're gonna go out and do that. But he's an Alaskan resident, so he can
Oh,
actually
sweet.
he can also shoot a brown bear. I'm gonna take a stick bow, and I think we can get 2 or 3 tags for black bears over the counter in this area. So we're gonna do that, and then he's gonna take his rifle. So hopefully maybe get a little footage and things of that nature there. And then in October, I'm doing a repeat of a hunt I did this past year. I went and hunted black bears in Arizona with hounds, and
Yeah.
it was one of my favorite hunts I've ever done. And did it through an outfitter. They've now become friends, P&D hunts, but got like 30 hounds in camp. Went out there and got a bear with my recurve, and it was this cool convergence between hounds using dogs as companions goes back at least 15,000 years ago. According to like archaeological records. And you talk about the trad police, and trad police are like, yeah, but you're using dogs. Is that really trad? And it's like, well, I
Super
mean,
trad.
actually, it's the trad, man. Like, yeah, it's the trad, capital T. So trying to bring together that convergence of these true trad practices was really fun, and try to think of it through that focal lens was nice. So we're having a little bear camp in October this year. I think we've got like 5 spots in camp. We've got like 3 of them full, and gonna do kind of like a trad bear camp with hounds and stuff like that in southern Arizona, and then just regular hunting deer, deer and turkey, and hopefully bear here in North Carolina. So should be a
Yeah.
good year. And this last year was the richest I felt in a long time, just by having a full freezer. So, um, man, I can't complain right now.
Yeah, it's hard to beat. That sounds awesome. Um, well, I mean, I appreciate you coming on and doing this podcast. Like, I just wanted to get to know you a little bit, give people a little sense of who you are and like
Thanks,
your
man.
approach to traditional archery. And you run an awesome podcast. You're with a great group of guys. For everybody listening, go check them out. It's the Bowyer Collective, right? And that's
Yeah,
what
so I guess the
look up.
brand is a Bowyer Collective, but the Bowyer Podcast is the actual podcast, and it's anywhere you find podcasts, Spotify, Apple, all that stuff. And then you're gonna hop on the Bowyer Podcast here in the coming days as well. So we'll do a
Whenever
little.
you'll have me. Yeah,
Yeah,
whenever you have me, for sure.
yeah, it'll be great, man. I'm looking forward to it.
I don't know what I'm gonna disappoint your audience with the few kills that I have with the trad bow and my limited success. I mean I missed a nice buck once, with my trad bow, and like once that happened, I will admit I used it a lot less after that because that one was a really
Uh,
nice buck.
yeah, I mean, so this year I don't think I missed anything this year, but I missed 3 deer last in hunting season of 24. All 3 things were like the same exact problem that I did. It was like I was in a stand, shot, didn't compensate for the angle, and like 6 inches over, 3 different
Yeah,
deer.
sure.
And it was
Yeah.
like, and 2 of those 3 were like 2 days apart. I was just, I mean, it was like, it was,
Chuck
it
your
was
bow.
really,
Yeah.
it was hard, man. I was calling my friends, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, like, why am I doing this? And, oh yeah, that's when you just decide to go to the South and go chase pigs for a weekend, and
Right.
you start making yourself feel better because you've got many
Target rich.
stalking opportunities. It's target rich. I also kind of think pig hunting might be more fun than whitetail hunting. Sometimes they're just super fun to chase around. But
Yeah. You're a
yeah, man,
wild
that's
animal, man.
Yeah, that's when I'm like, oh man, if I'm getting like really, trigger happy or whatever, I'm like, I need to go down to Florida or something and chase pigs for a weekend.
I love that. I love that. Well, like I said, thanks for coming on. Everybody listening, go check them out. I mean, if you're interested in traditional archery, I think everybody should give it a shot and to learn about it. I think it's just cool. Check Matthew out and the stuff you're doing. Like I said, appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, brother, you take care.
Cool. All right, thanks everybody. We'll see you next week.